at this point, I'm not really sure if I should be laughing or crying. I mean, it's just getting worse. This entire disastrous launch, which at least I had, I don't know, a slight little hope that maybe they would make good on. They would release some patches that fixed all the major stuff. The game would be left in at least an okay state. Well, some new details has emerged that just made me lose basically any remaining respect I had for Aspire. In terms of the actual game, there's no new updates on patches and such. I know a lot of you are still saying that you're enjoying the game, and don't get me wrong, I don't blame you. There are parts that work fairly fine, like the single player, for instance. You can still enjoy that, especially if you haven't played the originals at all. But the thing is, a lot of people keep saying, oh, it's only the multiplayer servers that are bad, you can still play the single player. Well, there's still actually quite a lot of stuff in the single player that is broken, or at least worse than the original version, which at least to me is bad enough. For instance, if you see this entire list, these are all issues that are present in the classic collection, but was not present in the classic version, like basically the version that's available on Xbox and Steam already. And sure, a lot of these aren't game breaking, but why would we even settle for a worse version than the classics that came out 20 years ago? That makes absolutely no sense and just shows how lazy this entire port by Aspire is. But to be honest, right now the main issues, for me at least, is that the multiplayer is just so bad, the servers are so laggy that I don't think it's worth playing. Just for the sake of checking the status of the game, I once again hopped on the multiplayer today and saw that there was a whopping 13 players playing on PC right now, so just forget about playing multiplayer. It's not gonna happen, especially not with the state the servers are in right now. And the second big issue being that there are still half of the cutscenes in Battlefront 2's campaign missing, and they have yet to say anything at all about that. Nothing in that one official statement basically mentioned anything other than network stability. And with all of these lists of bugs and stuff, they have not released a patch, they've not released any more updates, they haven't responded to any of this stuff. And for those of you who were with me and the entire community for EA's Battlefront 2, sure, that game had its issues, but if it would have launched like this, we would have had a million developer comments, update posts, and probably a patch already. So it's crazy to see how hard Aspire is dropping the ball on this. And just while I'm editing this video, I just have to add this in just to show you my frustration with this game. I was gonna record some simple hero assault footage to have in the background. That should work, right? Well, first of all, it plays this loud ass Cantina song which blocks out all gameplay sounds and will give me a copyright claim if I keep it in the video, despite having disabled music in-game. So I figured, okay, I'll wait until the song fades out. What happens when the song fades out? All the audio in the game dies instead. This release is such a joke, to be honest, so I'm gonna let you guys enjoy some Battlefront 2 DICE footage in the background for the rest of this video. But it doesn't stop there. So what am I talking about? What's so bad? Well, Aspire straight up lied to us. You guys might remember that when they released the initial trailer for the Classic Collection, there was a bunch of animations that used a mod from the community for Asajj Ventress and Kit Fisto, or actually I think it was only Asajj you could see in the trailer. This got a lot of attention and was eventually even brought up by IGN, which actually caused Aspire to respond. And they said that it's just an early recording that they did last fall when they were filming the trailer, and that the launch of the game will not have any uncredited or unofficial gameplay elements. So everyone thought, great, they responded to this, they shot down the accusation of them using mods, and that was about it. Until 2 days ago, when the guy who actually made these mods, for instance the one for Kit Fisto that came out in 2020, found out that they lied. They did actually launch it on multiple platforms with multiple of these mods, and they then tried to hide it, but he obviously found out because honestly it seems like the modders knows more about how this game works than the official developers do, because the modders have been able to fix most of the stuff that have been wrong with this release since years back. But let's go over the article here so I give you the full picture, because at first it might be hard to believe that are they actually doing this? Are they straight up lying to our face? But it is indeed true, and honestly props to IGN for actually bringing up these things and investigating them further. So they start off in the article simply explaining that in 2021, modder I Am a Shaimin actually brought the DLC to PC, reskinning characters to look like Kit and Asajj, which was then based on Kiademundi and Ayla Secura. And that's why some of the animations weren't exactly, at least initially, like they originally were in the DLC. And again, that was then spotted in the trailer. IGN wrote an article, but they did say, quote, "The Battlefront Classic Collection does not include any code or content that is taken from uncredited sources." But following up now, after this horrendous launch and the overwhelmingly negative user reviews on Steam, I Am a Shaimin has come out with new evidence to suggest that the game did indeed launch with their mod, or at least portions of the mod, before updates stripped them out. And IGN even spoke to him here, and he said it felt like a terrible gut punch, as apparently the Switch version actually uses the bubble effect that he created in 2020, as when he made that mod he was not able to get like the original effect from the Xbox version, since it's kind of hard to get the files out from games on the consoles. And they straight up used this in the Nintendo Switch release, including the same glitches and bugs that his mod had. And they actually managed to check these files, and they said the following: "We managed to dump, archive and data mine this version of the build and can confirm that some files are the same as my original mod, specifically regarding the hero's projectiles. What's odd about this is that they are using the right animations, but the weapon's data file, force bubble projectile and player models for both Kit Fisto and Asajj Ventress are from the PC mod." He goes on to say, "Some of the files were only modified in my mod slightly in order to work on PC, but still differ from the official models in some noticeable ways, and the force bubble effect is a completely different projectile I had to create myself. I've never had any issues with them using my mod, but now that they responded by saying what they did, shipping these files in multiple versions of the game and not crediting the source is an issue. Not because I demand credit, but just on the credibility of Aspyr. How can fans trust a company which doesn't seem to value the fans' passion?" And that's something that I really want to build upon here. Like, legally, this is okay, because if you create any mod for Battlefront, Lucasfilm, or in this case maybe Aspyr or originally Pandemic Games, still have all the rights for those mods, so they can technically do whatever they want. It's not that this is illegal, but more that this is highly immoral. They get called out for using mods, they deny using those mods, saying that no, we're not gonna do that, the launch is not gonna have any uncredited work, and then it turns out they did it anyways. That is such a bullshit thing to do, and just honestly shows how little they care. This seems to be the laziest port I have ever seen of a game, where they just piece together parts of, let's take the best from PC, let's take the best from Xbox, let's take the best that modders have done, squeeze it together to something that barely works, and then release it. And the version that comes out ends up being inferior in pretty much all ways to the original games. The only things that is slightly better is that they upscaled some of the textures, which definitely can be noticed and is slightly better, but it's still like automatic AI upscaling, which is why the files are so huge. And on top of that, I think Flandrew did a really good comparison between the games, where he also showed that the previous PC version pretty much already had those upscaled textures on some of the maps, meaning that if you compare the classic PC version of Battlefront 2 with maximum graphics, it's pretty much the same as the Classic Collection, only that the Classic Collection is like 5 times bigger. So the more we dig into this and the more that happens around this launch, it just saddens me. I've lost all trust for Aspyr, and even if it eventually ends up being an okay launch where at least we will have all the features we want, it's still gonna be an absolute flop. It's gonna be handled so poorly, and it really feels like they put the bare minimum effort to cash out as much as possible. And the more I see of this, the more I understand why the KOTOR remake was moved away from Aspyr, because they seem to have absolutely no clue what they're doing. I really hope they are not allowed to do any more of these re-releases of old games at all. We already know the stuff that happened with the KOTOR re-release, not the remake. They did actually release the re-release and said they were gonna include the DLC content, but then they ended up actually never including that content, yet again lying to the players. Honestly, I hope that Night Dive Studios just gets to take over all future re-releases or remasters, because they did a fantastic job with the Dark Forces re-release that came out a couple of weeks ago, and honestly everything seems perfect about that re-release, whereas Aspyr just completely butchered this classic collection. And honestly, I am just so tired of Battlefront as a franchise being completely screwed over yet again. How many times has that not happened now? Battlefront 3 has been cancelled basically 2 times. EA's Battlefront 2 launched as a huge fiasco, even though that did turn out to be a fantastic game, and once it did turn out to be a fantastic game, that was also cancelled. And now Classic Collection is probably the worst Battlefront launch yet, even though that's almost hard to believe. It just pisses me off to no end how no one can just make use of this franchise. Put out a good game, you're gonna sell 20 million copies, no problem. Stop screwing over the Battlefront community over and over. Anyways, that was all I had for you today. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, may the force be with you.